To the shock of many, Serena Williams, one of the greatest athletes of all time, highly revered, highly respected, the GOAT, she just came out in support of and promoting a GLP-1 for the company Ro. Ro is a telehealth and telemedicine company which Serena's husband, Alexis Ohanian, sits on the board of. Serena, along with other celebrities and athletes, have came out to support the company and sharing their journey on GLP-1s, and Serena has also shared her experience and what led her to use GLP-1s in pursuit of weight loss. Now, I'm of the mindset anyone can do whatever they want to their bodies. However, other people do not feel the same and feel very entitled to discuss Serena using these weight loss drugs, and not necessarily using these weight loss drugs, but promoting them. Some people are speaking about it from the ethical perspective, which I'll talk about later in the video. However, a lot more people are criticizing her use of it. And while I can understand the criticism or the perspective of we are allowed to criticize her because it is something that she is profiting off of, I completely understand that you want to be mindful of who you're supporting and what you're supporting and what they're promoting. However, I think the conversation about her using the GLP-1s is a lot more problematic, and that's what I want to talk about in this video. Aloha, beautiful humans. Welcome to my channel if you are new here. Welcome back if we've been locked in. My name is Sasha, and today we're going to be doing another compilation video where I talk about and share my perspective on other people's response and how they've been reacting to Serena Williams using GLP-1s and promoting the brand Ro, which her husband sits on the board of.
I don't care about haters. I actually had them my whole life. They can just get in line.
So you're taking GLP-1s.
Yeah.
And you're working with Ro. What was the moment that you were like, I got to get on these?
I've been trying to lose weight for so long, ever since I had my first child in 2017. I literally played professional tennis and I was never able to get my weight down to where I needed it to be for a healthy area, no matter what I did. And I did. I played Wimbledon. I played Opens. I played Grand Slams. I trained. I ran. I swam. I mean, you name it, I did it. When I had my second daughter, it was the same thing. Like, after I had the baby, I would lose a lot of weight fast, but then I would never lose much more than that. My friends were on it. A lot of people that I knew was on it. I was like, maybe I should try it. No. And I was like, maybe I should try it. No. And then eventually I was like, I got to try it. I've tried everything else. I approach it like an opponent because I'm like, I can't beat this opponent, this weight loss opponent. And so let me try something new. And for me, it was like doing the exact same things, but getting the results.
You fit into the jean skirt.
I finally fit into the jean skirt.
There's going to be haters out there, right? There probably already are saying, Serena's now given in to the noise. What do you say to that?
I don't care about haters. I actually had them my whole life. They can just get in line. Just a long line.
How do you not care about haters? Can you help me?
You know what? They have their own opinion. Everyone's allowed to have an opinion. Right. And why should I care what they think? I don't.
First and foremost, like I said in the intro, I have no issue with people using whatever weight loss drugs, medicines that are available to them for the simple fact that we live in a very fat-phobic society where we reward people for their looks. And one thing that we reward people for as it pertains to their looks is being thin. So we cannot tell people to get in shape, to get healthy, and promote skinniness, then be surprised when people use drugs that will help people attain thinness and stay healthy. The conversation surrounding Serena Williams in particular is a little troubling to me, and I think there are a lot of things wrapped up in it. For one, the fact that she is an athlete, people have this perspective that she shouldn't need to use these weight loss drugs, that she should be able to control her weight with diet and exercise, and who better than the GOAT of all time would know how to exercise and eat right. However, in the commercial, Serena said she had tried everything and this is the only thing that helped her. And as a woman who is in her 40s and has 2 children, I absolutely believe that. We hear time and time and time again from mothers how difficult it is, how challenging it is to keep off the baby weight. And I imagine it would be harder when you're having children a little bit older. So I don't think we are entitled to talk about anyone, their body, and how they are attaining and maintaining their weight loss, especially since we live in a very fat-phobic society where we are punishing people for being fat, but then we also turn around and punish people for how they lose weight. Before you get on the internet and critique Serena Williams marketing GLP-1s, I think we really need to be intentional about what we are saying, how we are saying it, and the ways we speak about Black women, about and to Black women, and how we critique Black women on social media. I'm sure by now we have all seen this ad of Serena Williams marketing GLP-1's. However, there is a way to express your shock, disappointment, however you feel about this ad. There's a way to talk about it without critiquing or talking about her looks. And in part, I don't even think it is necessary, if I'm being totally honest. I don't think it's really even necessary to critique her usage of this, in the sense that she has been so picked apart for so long. We live in such a society that is hypercritical about people's appearances, people's looks, that even athletes are shamed for the ways that their body looks. And Serena Williams was very much so on the receiving end of a lot of this criticism about her appearance. And I think it's really disingenuous to pick apart someone for years, pick apart everything about their appearance, what they look like, their shape, their body, features that they cannot help, features that they were born with, and then turn around and criticize those people when they seek to change those very features that people have used to make fun of them and put them down. And while we can tell people, work on your self-esteem, nobody should ever make you or be able to make you feel a certain way about yourself. That's why it's important to have high self-esteem and self-confidence, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I do agree with that. However, it is also very disingenuous and hypocritical to make fun of people for their appearance, but then turn around and reward people for their features when they change their appearance. Also, people like to pick and choose. We live in a society that rewards people for being thin. Just 2 weeks ago, actually, I think it was last week, people were defending Cardi B, saying Samira was doing too much. All of a sudden, though, people are turning around and wanting to shame Serena Williams for marketing GLP-1's. Pick a lane, pick and choose, okay? You can't be championing somebody being fatphobic and making fun of 3X and plus size people, but then turn around and say this is shocking to you. And for me, I think what confused me more was why all of a sudden, what would incentivize Serena Williams to be marketing these GLP-1s? And then I Googled it and realized her husband is one of the board members of this company. So after finding out her husband was a board member, I was like, oh, that tracks. It makes sense why they would use a highly recognizable and highly revered public celebrity and athlete to market GLP-1s. It makes sense. And if I'm being completely honest, I think the people who have negative critiques about this are being disingenuous. When it comes to GLP-1s, I think it is a matter of access, because the vast majority of people, if they could take these drugs, they probably would, because we live in a society that consistently rewards looks and thinness above all else. So if you want to stop seeing the proliferation of these GLP-1s, if you want weight loss and skinniness at all costs to stop being marketed towards you, we need to be intentional about what we are taking in and the messages that we are sending our society when we reward people for being thin above all else. We cannot turn around and get mad at the people who recognize the biases that we hold as a society and then want to turn around and profit off of it. There would be no market for these GLP-1s if there wasn't such rampant fat phobia that exists in this country and worldwide. Now, as I said, her husband sits on the board, and if people were approaching it from that perspective, that is a conversation that I think we can have. However, there is an element of misogynoir that's happening within this conversation, and misogynoir as it pertains to Serena Williams being a Black woman and engaging and interacting with the system of capitalism, that I also think we need to talk about. Thank you for bringing this up, because my video was already getting long, but this is also something that I wanted to talk about. Now, if people frame the conversation from the perspective of it being unethical that she is the face of this brand, or she is promoting this brand while her husband sits on the board, I can absolutely understand that. I get the critique about it being unethical. However, that's not the critique that I have been seeing at all. It is all shaped around her body and why she is using GLP-1s and the message that it is sending. However, it is very curious to me the ways in which Black women are criticized for participating in capitalism when it goes against what some people feel is acceptable or unacceptable. Now, with Serena Williams, I feel like there is just so much vitriol for her from a specific community, from our community. However, there is a very specific type of vitriol, a very specific type of person that comes for her, and it's always tied into her husband. And it is absolutely because her husband is white, and that is an entirely separate conversation. However, pulling it back to the criticisms of the ways Black women participate in capitalism and how we are expected to take a stand when the community feels like there is something we should be the face of, or there's something we are boycotting. For example, boycotting Target, right? How everything happened at the beginning of the year, their DEI, rolling back their DEI campaigns and promises, and everybody was like boycotting Target, which was fine. But then all of a sudden we start to see Black women, Black entrepreneurs whose brands are in Target, they start to be on the receiving end of a lot of vitriol and hate from people saying that this is what we are doing as a community and you guys should be pulling out as well. Some people feel so entitled to Black women's labor and sacrifices that we expect Black women to even sacrifice as it pertains to their own financial capital, to their own financial well-being, and that Black women should take a back seat to capitalism or any self-profit or any self-gain if it is something that we do not feel benefits the community as a whole. However, that expectation is never required or demanded of Black men. And it is the same reason why people can sit around and criticize Beyonce for being a billionaire and not say anything about Jay-Z being a billionaire, despite the fact that the way he went about becoming a billionaire or how he got his start was remarkably harmful and not helpful to his community, as opposed to Beyonce and her route to becoming a billionaire. Now, we all know that there is no ethical way to become a billionaire. However, I think there are levels to becoming or getting your start as a drug dealer in comparison to an entertainer. Thank you for bringing this up though, because the criticism that I have been seeing about Serena Williams as the face of this Roe company, yes, it is that she is using GL1Ps and people are criticizing that, but people are also criticizing her profiting off of this as a result of her husband being on the board. And in my personal opinion, isn't that the goal? If you're trying to create generational wealth or wealth for your family, you put your people on. And it's very curious to me, all of a sudden, the concern about nepotism and ethics when a Black woman is profiting. But that's just my opinion. I've touched on this a little bit in this video already. However, the fact that people are so critical of the ways people lose weight, more specifically the availability of GLP-1's, I think that is driven a lot by the fact that we live in a culture of suffering and these medicines are not accessible to the general public. I definitely think those two play a role in people's response to GLP-1's. American culture is very punitive and we live in a culture that worships suffering. What I mean by that is we as a culture and as a society really dislike when things come easy to people. We believe that in order for something to be worth having or accomplishing, you have to suffer in the process or go through some great hardship. Combine that with the fact that as a culture and as a society, we are very fat phobic and we have very deplorable views about fat people. You know, we view fat people as lazy, gluttonous, indulgent, and so they want fat people to suffer in their pursuit of being thin, in their pursuit of losing weight. And when people with this mentality who have bought into this culture of suffering, when they buy into that idea, it is very frustrating and anger inducing to see fat people become skinny and not have to go through the suffering that is skinniness, because skinniness is put on a pedestal. It is something that is very challenging to maintain for a lot of people. If your body type is not naturally skinny, it is something, being skinny, the pursuit of skinniness, it is work. It is challenging work. It is hard work. And when we don't see people suffering in that way, going through all of this sacrifice to get skinny and maintain that skinniness, people become very angry. They view you as taking shortcuts. So this is why we see a lot of this anger towards the sleeve surgery, gastric bypass, weight loss surgery, liposuction, and now GLP-1's. Add to that the fact that Serena Williams, she is a rich woman. She's somebody with access and wealth, and GLP-1's are still out of reach for many Americans. They're still very expensive. I genuinely believe if they were more accessible to the average American who wanted these medicines, citizens who wanted to take these weight loss drugs, if they were accessible to the average American, we wouldn't be having this conversation. The next thing would be, or the next thing to put on a pedestal, being skinny, it wouldn't be enough. We would have to put on a pedestal how you got skinny, if it's natural, if you maintained it by eating right and going to the gym, starving yourself. There's always this next level to show that somebody is suffering in pursuit of attaining what they have. And that thing in this particular case is skinniness. And that is why people have such negative views about GLP-1s, because they view it as people taking the easy way out. In closing, as a society, we cannot have it both ways. We cannot punish people for being fat, and then we cannot turn around and punish people for losing weight. Regardless of whether you think it is the easy way, that's none of your business. Now, we can discuss it as it pertains to Serena Williams, because again, this is something she is promoting. And when people are making money off of something, I do think it bears a conversation of, hey, you're trying to sell us something. What are the possible ulterior motives that you could possibly be bringing to the equation? However, if a world-renowned athlete who has been training since she was a girl, since she was a child, if she herself is saying diet and exercise is not working for me, I think this bears a deeper conversations about the ways in which weight loss is not as simple as diet and exercise. And when we think about GLP-1s, a lot of people think about it from the very narrow-minded perspective of, oh, these are just fast and easy weight loss, but they don't take into account how this is improving people's health, how this is improving and changing people's lives. And if this is making someone healthier, it shouldn't matter to you, especially if you're not paying for it, the ways in which they are maintaining and attaining their weight loss and what they are doing for their health. A lot of people just need to be honest about the fact that it is not about healthiness. It is about shaming people for being fat and then being envious about the ways in which people go about losing that fat. And you can't have it both ways. It seems like people want to be able to use fat people as a punching bag, and then when fat people opt out of being used as a punching bag for being fat and they seek to change their life, then people want to use them as a punching bag because they didn't go about weight loss the right way. Those are my thoughts on Serena Williams using GLP-1s. Normally I would end the video like, tell me your thoughts. However, I don't think it's really necessary, our thoughts about how she is going about her weight loss. So instead, I will end the video saying, what are your thoughts about GLP-1s not being readily available and accessible to people? And do you think that would change people's perspective and the conversation surrounding GLP-1s if they were widely available to the average American who wanted it? Drop down in the comments. Let me know your thoughts on that. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and until next time, peace out.